humans, like, we're pretty simple. I think we respond to pain. That's it. Like, I don't think there's much more to it. It's not that complicated. Like, until we feel now we can plan 100 years out, we can do this stuff. But I think the general population, unfortunately, has to somehow have some sort of stimulus that helps, refocus them, because otherwise we're not going to do it. Like, how many hurricanes have to pass through, the South or anywhere for people to be like, oh, okay, you know what? Like, maybe we shouldn't build our McMansion literally on this little piece of sand in Florida.
While AI and electric cars grab headlines, a profound shift is happening beneath the surface of our energy landscape. This year, 2025, is the first time that investments in clean energy technology will surpass upstream oil and gas investments. It's a watershed moment that few predicted would come so soon. Now, behind this transition lies a perfect storm of innovation and necessity. Solar photovoltaics now account for half of all clean tech investments, while a new wave of power-hungry industries is creating unprecedented demand. Data centers alone, fueled by this AI revolution, are requiring an additional 44 gigawatts by 2030. That's enough to power millions of homes. But this isn't just about building more solar farms and wind turbines. The race is on to develop technologies that address this sort of Achilles heel of renewable energy. It's irregular and intermittent in nature. So green hydrogen, long-duration energy storage, and AI-driven grid optimization are moving from experimental to essential as our energy systems transform. So today, we're joined by Mark Rabin, the visionary founder and board member of Portable Electric, which is pioneering mobile renewable power solutions since 2015. Now, with over 23 years in the energy industry, he's transformed Portable Electric into a global leader. Mark holds advanced degrees in earth sciences, energy economics, and an MBA in technology and innovation. He's currently serving as president of Carbon IP, and he's developing battery-grade graphite from trees and continues consulting and advising early-stage startups. He's a passionate climate tech advocate. Mark also co-hosts the Tie-In podcast, which is discussing sustainability and innovation while mentoring emerging leaders in the clean energy ecosystem. Mark, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Your background and education, obviously very underwhelming. Obviously, you're not a high achiever at all. But before we kind of get into your work, Portable Electric, Carbon IP, the work that you're doing now, always really curious about why people set out on a mission. And I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but there's a theme to your work and your interests, from your education to what you've done to this point. So it's seeming like you're on a mission. So I'm really interested to learn, obviously, about what brought you to this point in the companies you've developed and the work that you're doing. But before that, I'd be really curious to hear about when it dawned on you that this is an important mission.
It was all an accident, just to be clear. Like anything, right? I mean, we start out with this like vision of like, I'm going to be over here and this is what's going to happen. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I've got to do this for some time. And then I've got to like struggle a little bit. Then I've got to go here. So I started off as a geologist in the oil business. And, it's like, I always joke that
wasn't in your bio at all.
Yeah. And I was like, everything I learned about the earth, I actually learned from being a petroleum geologist, which is kind of interesting, right? It's kind of weird, but I sort of like learned how to understand the earth and learned how to like, earth whisper, listen to the earth and also understand earth processes. But it was in the dark northern BC woods drilling these oil and gas wells that I fell in love with the energy transition. And this is now, we're talking early 2000s here, right? So it's a long time. And I started to read all these books on the end of oil and the hydrogen economy and renewables and, what was going on with the planet around us. I mean, because that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, if we just look around, we can see that things are sort of out of balance. And then even humanity here on the planet, we're all sort of out of balance. So I started going down that rabbit hole while I was in these oil rigs. And that's when I was like, okay, my passion wasn't being a geologist, but then I realized, I was like, oh wait, this has sort of given me the key to understanding the next phase of where we're going from an energy perspective. I started calling up all the top energy mines in Canada. This was early days, and they were like, you have to leave Canada to study energy. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so that's when I found the top energy institute in Scotland. It was actually in Europe. And it was called the Center for Energy, Petroleum, Mineral Law and Policy at the University of Dundee.
Okay.
And I was like, great, I'm in. Let's go. Sold everything and did that. And that's what sort of brought me into this, into this sort of new awareness of where we're going from an energy economics perspective. And I loved every minute of it. When you're in those moments where it's like everything is flowing perfectly right and there's no resistance. That was one of those moments. So that's sort of what kept me on that, started me on that path. But the economy tanked in 2008. And I actually went back to the oil business for 5 more years. And so it was a bit of like a rough adjustment, but then I also was just like, look, I'm all in. I know where it's going now. It's a long game, as kind of your intro. Like this isn't, we're not at the like middle point of an energy transition here. We're actually at the very beginning fart of changing our entire global energy infrastructure. So I was like, okay, I consoled myself in that, stuck it out for 5 more years. That's when I was like, I got to get out of here. 2013, and that's when I went and did my MBA and focused on energy technology and information technology. And actually, my first business out of that MBA was doing energy in Africa, and it was in South Africa, in Namibia, and we were doing these little hybrid solar generators, like little power systems, and that's sort of where I set the wheels in motion for what was to come. Yeah.
So you said in 2013 you just felt like you had to get out of there. What was the motivation at that point?
My heart and soul just knew that my time was done with my work in the oil business, and I knew it from the very beginning. But I learned as I sort of matured that I'm like, oh, here's a spigot with cash flowing out of it, and if I wanted to achieve what I wanted to achieve, like, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to work the system. And so for me, that was me working the system. Is like learning how to like work the banking system, how to make money, how to like show up every day and look good and, be a part of a team. I've only had one real job in my life, like full-time job. That was when I worked in the oil business for 5 years. It's been an interesting journey though, because what's interesting now is all of the energy folks that I'm interfacing with that back in the day are all now towing into the world of renewables and off-grid clean energy and different, diversifying.
Well, it's a necessity. It's apparent where the world is headed. It's apparent where the transition is headed. So I think it's very much a practical, still a very capitalist decision to get out ahead of it. I'm not sure if he was like from the Saudi family or like a minister, but I remember there was some member of OPEC years ago that made this comment. He said that the Stone Age didn't end due to the shortage of stones.
Yamani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, such a profound statement to make, but he was speaking to the oil transition. He's like, we're not going to run out of oil. The transition will happen beforehand because it has to, right? I'm a little curious about when you talked about being a geologist and at that point kind of realizing that you had a connection to this thing. Like, was it from a connection to the land? Was it from a connection of actually like almost on some level like interfacing with the earth in a really like deep and interesting way? Like, what was it that kind of created that connection at first? And the reason I'm asking that question is, there's a bit of an interesting phenomenon where a lot of people don't know this, but here in BC, there's a number of different organizations that work on conservation of like salmon habitats. And you wouldn't think this because it's almost counterintuitive, but they were all founded by fishermen, right? People that actually, fish for salmon and therefore had a really intimate connection with these spaces therefore understood kind of how sacred they were, and then wanted to protect them, right?
Yeah.
But it is counterintuitive. Nobody would think that it would be a fisher that would want to go out and create.
Well, it's just like farmers are seeing the effects of climate change far before anybody. For me, it was a connection to humanity, not the land. The land will be fine in the long run. It's us.
Once it shakes off the people,
it's us that won't be okay. And something I've always said is sort of like any civilization intent on surviving would not be doing what we're doing.
Holy shit!
Right?
Yeah.
That makes no fucking sense. Pardon my French. There's no way. Right? Everybody knows. Like that's that. It's like the gig's up. Everybody knows. It's just, we've got, competing interests that are just trying to, just continuing to hold on to power. But like for me, it was about any advanced civilization needs to be doing something differently if we're going to survive on this planet, right? Or if we were to be visited, maybe they're already here, but by, some extraterrestrials from somewhere that could be part of us, wherever, they wouldn't be, burning like rocket fuel, right? That's not how they're getting around. So I'm just like, that's what got me really interested in this. And also that we have the technology here to do it today, right? There's always that saying where people are like, well, the technology's not good enough. Like, no, it's pretty good. It's good enough.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there's breakthroughs, it sounds like, that are showing up all the time. And was there any specific breakthrough that kind of led to the founding of Portable Electric, or was that more you heading out in a direction and saying, okay, we have to do this regardless, and we'll figure it out on the way?
So a couple things. The first one is part of my also background is parties, throwing events.
Oh,
right.
We have that in common. I used to do that.
I love it. Like I love creating community. I love bringing people together. So it's the first thing that you need when you're doing an event that's, sound and lights and music. All right. And how do you power that? So you have a generator. Or so if you go to festivals or if Burning Man, for example, Burning Man, there's a generator literally every 15 feet. I don't know. Like there's literally a generator everywhere you go, and they're like buzzing and they're so inefficient and making noise and polluting. And so that's kind of what I was already in that world. And then from the previous business, it's called Zolaire, doing these little portable power systems, I actually got to observe how humans wanted to move a little power system around. And so I sort of connected that with these portable generators that I already been used to using. And I was like, okay, wow, I want to try to rent an industrial grade renewable power system. Like I don't want to rent a generator. I want to rent a silent generator, a battery system. And I couldn't do it. So that's when I was like, okay, the technology exists for me to create a product. So the innovation wasn't in, the battery technology that I was doing or anything like that. It was in how I was packaging this and how I was presenting it and how you as a user of the product wanted to move it around. So hence Portable Electric. So it was around like just really understanding humanity and humans and how we want to do things. Like this is a human problem. Like, this is not an earth problem. This is not, none of this stuff is like, it's our own creation, and we're going to have to figure out a way forward through it.
I wasn't expecting that. I didn't think that the initial aha moment would be around parties and wanting to create portable energy supplies for them. Because I actually feel that really hard because I did a bunch of festival production years ago, and outdoor events, similarly, tying into power would be difficult. And if we ever want to do something interesting or creative, big, noisy, gas-powered things,
you're tethered to it.
Yeah, we're trying to tuck them in, away and hide them somewhere so that the buzzing, noise isn't bothering us. But I didn't have the wherewithal or, I guess, the education to go away from that and say, oh, I need to create a power device and create a market for that.
I mean, this is the thing, though. 99% of innovation comes from something that you're doing, right? That you know, right? Very little is where you're sitting in the bathtub and you're like, oh, I'm going to invent this thing. So that's kind of what happened. But I'm also just standing on the shoulder of giants. I mean, there's so many amazing innovators in this space. And I'm very fortunate that a lot of them are my friends. So it's very collaborative and very open. But the entertainment industry is an amazing beachhead for so many things. And that's what happened. We latched on to the entertainment industry. We were doing events and festivals, and then major motion picture Hollywood film started showing up. And so that's why everybody is quick to dismiss entertainment as like, oh, it's a small market. Oh, it's because that's what everybody wants. In startup land, everybody's like, I need a $1 billion market minimum, and it has to be this big. But who's going to pay for it, and who wants it? Because if no one wants it, it doesn't matter how big the market is. So that's where we started, the beachhead. And you know what? To this day, it's still the beachhead. Like for any of the other sort of businesses that I'm in the process of incubating and starting.
You start with entertainment first?
Entertainment.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of a,
I haven't heard that or read that or seen that in any like startup blog post anywhere.
Yeah. That's because it's an insular world, right? You can't just show up and start throwing a festival or an event because people are going to be like, who are you? I'm not showing up.
Yeah. You got to build community around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was the founding of Portable Electric, and you're still a board member, but you're not involved day to day, or what's going on?
No, I stepped down in December 2023.
Pretty recent. Okay.
Yeah. It was time to move on. My heart and soul still there, but it's certainly been a journey because it's the business becomes a part of you, and then all of a sudden you're just like, it's all about, you're identifying this every minute is this, this is part of me. And so I actually had to really sort of start to figure out how to remove myself from that and from my identity around that. Also, COVID was a really hard time for any business, right? But especially for a business that was focused on entertainment and film, which, all that.
No live production,
stopped right away. And so that was difficult, but it was time to move on. And time to sort of start to figure out what was next for me. But it took me a year and a half to start to like, my natural default is to go. And after I came out of that, I literally started to busy myself, like unlimitedly busy. And then I was like, oh, I'm burnt out here. Like I need to like take a pause. And I went hard on flow. So I literally was like, oh, this is, because I'm extreme, right? This is extreme. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to totally just go the opposite. What's the opposite of like hustle and go? It's like, no, I'm just going to flow. So I did that for a year. I just like, it was like, yeah, I'm going to flow this. I'm going to feel flow. That feels good. And then I was like, okay, that's not going to work either. It's too, right? So now what I'm doing actually is I'm sort of recalibrating to that balance of like, I have to hustle a little bit and then you got to flow. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So I hope you don't mind me picking on this, but I feel like when you mentioned Portable Electric and leaving the company, you kind of hinted at something there that sounds like it's a part of a bigger story, but you said that you were trying to figure out how to disintermediate your identity, and you had started to identify yourself with the company a lot. Like, why is that a bad thing? I mean, founders' stories are very much wrapped up in their business, their mission, and it kind of becomes one big thing eventually, right? But why were you experiencing a challenge with that, or was it?
I mean, in many ways, like that's why the businesses are started in the first place, right? I mean, it's like, it's the energy that you put into it. It's the magic. It's the spark.
And it's a very strong ego, right? It's saying, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. And I'm going to put all my money in it. And I'm going to bring all these people along and they're going to put their money in it. And that, like, it's like the train, when the train's leaving the station, right? Everybody's jumping on and you're like, this is where we're going. But when that stops happening, right? Or for whatever reason, there's business partner challenges, there's challenges with the board. Everybody's chirping from the back, right? Like, it's like you have to be pretty strong in your conviction for this business because everybody's literally trying to take you down. Not just like, the market, but, it's competitors coming in. There's people seeing it. It starts to like wear on, it wore on me. And I think at that point, that's when I was like, okay, like it's time to let go, right? It's time to move myself forward because it's kind of like being in an abusive relationship sometimes. It's like at some point you got to leave or you got to like do that. But it takes a lot of awareness, because as entrepreneurs, obviously, like the whole point of how we got here is we're just holding on, right? What's that whole thing about? It's like the people that succeeded are the people that could like literally hold on the whole time while getting punched in the face. It's kind of like, so that's something that I was like, I was trained to override, right? I think, I don't know, like,
Trained to override?
Trained to override emotions, override, anything, just like keep holding, work harder. Like, this shit doesn't work anymore. At least it's not working anymore for me. And so I think that was all part of this process of learning to let go and learning to say, look, you know what, this thing is its own thing, and I need to die, for it.
No, I think what you said there about that override isn't working anymore. I think you're right to say that it's not working in general. I think societally, where there was probably a period of time when we all existed at sort of some medium level of repression, and everybody had it, and so we're all just kind of dealing with each other's repressed personalities. So when you're meeting somebody, you're not really meeting the person, you're meeting their representative, I guess, of whoever they're trying to perform. And that was probably a bit more common. And I think in our spaces, there's a lot more authenticity now. And as a result, you can't just override and repress, because people will feel it off you. It's seen in your leadership.
100% agree with that.
So once you recognize that and you're like, okay, I can't just override this. I'm feeling something here and I need to move beyond it. What did you move beyond to do? Or that was that year and a half of flow.
Yeah. I mean, first it was trying to do less. But also, like, I've had wonderful friends, family, coaches, people that have like really helped me see, different things. Also plant medicine has been helpful over the years as well. And I think that's been something that we're starting to see more and more, right? To sort of reconnect with our bodies, our souls, that feeling of oneness, like that feeling of the earth, connecting with the earth. I mean, that's, back to that as well. I mean, I still care about the earth deeply, but also the earth is communicating with us, right? And I think that we've gotten, why we're in this pickle is because we sort of like humans sort of dominate, right, over the earth.
It's that override again, but on a societal level, right? Because there's the feedback mechanism is telling us everything that we need to know, but it's almost like a civilization level repression happening, that we don't want to deal with the feelings that we're creating in the world and the environment around us. So we're just pushing down or repressing and hanging on and thinking that we'll be able to push through somehow.
And it comes from our parents, right? I mean, we sort of like this. Like being able to like feel your emotions, that was not a thing. And so it's interesting to sort of be able to recognize that, not hold it against them, but we have to do be different, and also like how we do our businesses and the authenticity in the businesses, like that's all that we have. People don't have to stick around companies anymore, right? I think that's a big thing. Right? People literally can now work remotely with any company wherever. If they don't like your company, they don't have to stick around.
It's the only reason to stay would be that I'm enjoying what I'm doing and I'm enjoying the people that I'm doing it with.
Yeah. So that's kind of like been a big part of it. But what's been awesome about the last year is I was able to take time, and now very, very blessed that I was able to do it, and to sort of go and redevelop my own thesis about myself and what I wanted to do, and who I want to do it with. And I sort of developed these sort of three things that are really important to me when I'm looking at my next projects, my next business, my next people that I want to do it with.
This is the thesis, or this is what you're looking at for the
top three. Okay. So it's number one, the greatest determinant of success is team, right? It's who's with you. So team. You're going to raise money. You're going to attract people. You're going to your products can be better. People are going to want to buy it, right? Number two, it's a clear path to commercialization and profitability. The time of like crazy moonshots and not making money for like 10 years and whatever, like this has to like solve a real pain point, and it has to be sustainable. It has to regenerate itself. It has to make enough money to like sustain operations and get this moving forward. And the other one is like, some sort of defensibility, a clear moat, IP, Doesn't have to be traditional stuff, but it has to be something like, why is it different? Why do people care about it? And sort of those are sort of like, that's when I'm measuring all of the opportunities. And then enthusiasm, right? I think that's the kind of, you got like, if someone's like, oh yeah, I work like 5 hours a week on my startup. I'm like, cool. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So those are kind of like how I'm sort of reframing. And then also one more thing is I actually spent the whole year and a half networking with no agenda. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but
That's
it's
just like making friends.
Yeah,
it sounds like, yeah.
Exactly. But when you have something that you're always like pushing, you're like trying to raise money, or you have investors, or you're like, I can sell my product or do this and that. That's very different than just being like, hey, like, well, let's figure out why we're talking. Mm-hmm. Is there something we can talk about or something we can do, we can move forward with? And all of a sudden from that stems a real relationship, and that was a big takeaway as well, right? It's just like, yeah, we're just people. We're just two people hanging out, but it's all about that purpose. I've also fallen into sort of a bit of a regenerative economics world because, like our world is inherently extractive, right? By nature, our economic system is extractive. And so again, these are back to these ideas that's not going to fly anymore. Like it doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. So what do we do?
So I'm hearing the urgency in your voice when you express that. What's the most frustrating conversation you've had when working with a partner or a team member or maybe even another company where you're trying to explain this to somebody who maybe is working in the same space, but perhaps isn't bringing the same urgency and passion to it that you are?
I think it's a feeling. It's a feeling, and it actually comes down to like values alignment. Really, at the end of the day, and I didn't understand that obviously, at first. But it's like why is your vibe off from a person, right? Mm-hmm. Or why are you're like, oh, this is kind of like we're canceling each other out a little bit, or right? That there's more to it, mm-hmm. right? But again, back to the override. Traditionally we're like, no, it's okay. Maybe they're having a hard day, but no, it's like you show up every day and you're actually like in this engagement of energetic engagement, and that's something that I've been working on, and feeling that, and like actually letting that come out and being like, oh, okay, it's cool. I don't have to like this person, but I certainly need to steer away from this person. Mm-hmm. Right. That's something that I've been like really, really honing. And it's like a superpower that I feel really good about, yeah. But it's knowing, not everybody has the same values and not everybody has the same intentions.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll find somebody that they align with better. So you said you've been following that. Like, where's that led you? Like, what's your next venture? I mentioned carbon IP. Mm-hmm. Is that the majority of your time, or are you consulting with startups?
Yeah. So I'm consulting right now. Mm-hmm. So I mean, sort of venture-ish is the podcast mm-hmm. called The Tie-In, which you said in your intro. And this is a passion project with myself and Zena Harris. She's one of the original movers and shakers in sustainability and entertainment. And we've become really great friends. We see eye to eye on everything. And we were like, wow, there's a missing voice here in sustainability and entertainment. That's the sort of the overarching theme of the podcast. But it's
the tie-in.
The tie-in, exactly. Mm-hmm. Right. There's so many different ways you can tie into things. Mm-hmm. But there's all these voices that needed to be heard. So that's one of the projects. Carbon IP, consulting on this incredible technology. It's we take lignin from trees and we upgrade it to essentially battery grade graphite, but it's actually hard carbon and activated carbon. So it's like deep material science, and it goes into batteries. It's like, I don't know, circular economy, if we're still using that term. But
sounds so simple. What a simple business.
Exactly. But my real passion is in off-grid infrastructure and renewable energy infrastructure. So I'm helping right now with a friend's company called Hollywood Trucks, and incredible technology, and doing the most amazing luxury off-grid solar-powered cast and crew trailers for Hollywood film production. Like, these things are like space stations. So super awesome. That's with a good friend, Andre Champagne. And then I'm currently also incubating another company that's in stealth mode, along the same lines, but closer to my background in mobile power. So think, big ass solar generators as well. So that's kind of like, that's all I can say about that right now. But it's pretty exciting to be in those early stages. It's like being in like early stages of a relationship, right? You're just kind of like, everything's exciting.
Before it gets abusive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the whole point is to like steer it, make sure that we all get out front and like get everything out on the table up front, right? I think that's a big takeaway. It's like, let's just put it all out. Put it all out here. We've all been in businesses before. We've all done things before. Like, it's important that we put it all on the table and say, like, this is me, this is you, and let's talk about it. So that's how I'm approaching a lot of this stuff right now. But the main thing is around, we need more resilient and dynamic infrastructure to address some of the changing things that are going on, right? Look at the wildfires in LA, right? Like, this is spurring a whole entire discussion in Los Angeles around how we design communities, resiliency, like, right? How we rebuild that so it doesn't happen again, or that so we can address these things, like, which is super cool.
See, my concern is, I mean, you would hope that, something so traumatic and devastating would be some sort of transformative moment. My worry is that there's also this kind of human need for comfort, right? And so often those sorts of cataclysms, even though there's a lot of potential for change there, there's also, this kind of habit and tendency to just kind of reset back to the default of what we had before. So we can take a deep breath and say, okay, we're back to normal and things are the same, right? A more global example would have been like COVID. It was such a strange and interesting opportunity where everything that we thought were the hard and fast rules of how society works were just kind of chucked out the window one day. It was like, actually, we're just going to print money and hand it over for a while. Nobody work, everybody stay home. Not to say that was sustainable by any means, but it was such an odd and interesting time to perhaps reset some things and rethink some things. But it was really counterbalanced with, and you could feel it and you could hear it, this need to just kind of reset to the way things were before so we can feel like things are okay, right? Yeah. So even with the LA wildfires, I mean, there's a moment there to actually do a lot of introspection and to actually think about what we're doing in not just the built environment, but how we live. But I just wonder if that's going to be counterbalanced by this human tendency to want to go back to the default because that's what we're used to.
Absolutely. Until more pain happens. I think I think humans, like, we're pretty simple. I think we respond to pain. That's it. Like, I don't think there's much more to it. It's not that complicated. Like, until we feel, now we can plan 100 years out, we can do this stuff, but I think the general population, unfortunately, has to somehow have some sort of stimulus that helps, refocus them, because otherwise we're not going to do it. Like, how many hurricanes have to pass through, the South or anywhere for people to be like, oh, okay, you know what? Like, maybe we shouldn't build our McMansion literally on this little piece of sand in Florida, right? But it's like the insurance companies, though, are going to lead that, right? They're not going to insure. So there's going to be these interesting little unintended things that, like, okay, great. So now all of a sudden the insurance companies are in the climate resilience business, and now we've got to figure out who they're going to like do it. And otherwise, they're just going to have to move away. And eventually, people move away or people change or different. So, I mean, people who lived in like, floodplains or by the ocean, like for thousands of years, they built their homes on stilts, right? Or they had like raised homes because they knew that every so often things flooded.
Yeah, you don't want to feel the pain of that, so you avoid it. Yeah.
Right. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation come from that. But I do have a funny little tidbit. Like, so I went to New Orleans last December, and I was there, and the first thing I got into, and this is like, this is a Republican kind of state, and like go for it, America. But the first thing I sit in this Uber driver's car, she starts talking about the flood, right? And how, how her car was damaged and she had to get a new car and this and that and the other. And then I talked to somebody else, literally like the next day, same thing. They referenced, when they had the, sort of the floods, the hurricane coming through and so on. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm having all these conversations about this sort of, environmental and property destruction. But no one's like saying it's climate change or whatever, but people are feeling the pain. So, and this is what's interesting is why I kind of, in some ways, although quite Trumpian, changing the way that we're describing some of these things, right? Some people have a diversion to the term climate change. Well, let's change the word.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just change how we're talking about this, because it's still just people who are feeling the pain. So that's kind of something that I think a lot about right now.
Do you think, I mean, this is a weird sort of projection sort of question to ask, but have we felt enough pain to change to that extent, or do you think there's a lot more pain coming? Like for the projects that you're excited about and you're involved in, do you see them turning the tide, or do you see things getting a lot worse before they get better?
Depends on what industry and what region where we're at. Like, for example, film, entertainment, not feeling the pain necessarily, right? But, well, I mean, there's different kinds of pain in that film's feeling right now, because obviously the film industry's in a bit of like a slump. But they know that they have to do the right thing, because if we can't make movies and go to festivals and do things without taking a huge crap on the planet, right? Like, or with taking a, well, no, I was going to say that. But the point is if we can't make movies without like being good stewards of the planet, then what the hell are we doing, right? We need to be able to, like, that should be like, we should be making every production, every concert series should be done without pollution, plastic waste, etc. But it's hard to sort of like say that to somebody living in the South, right? Who's just trying to get by. So I think there's going to be a lot more pain. So and it's going to affect low income communities. Unfortunately, it's not going to. The rich people don't feel it. They can move away. They can go away. It doesn't affect their income.
They have options.
There's also going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions, of environmental refugees moving around the planet, right? And all of a sudden, when you need to leave your land and you're going into somebody else's land at gunpoint, what happens, right? So I think we are going to sort of we have to have these struggles. This is a complicated topic that I'm trying to, like, be careful in what I'm saying, but it's like, yeah, there's going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions of people that are going to feel a lot of pain. And that's going to be a tipping point. Where's the tipping point? I don't know. Can Americans lead it? Can Europeans lead it? I hope so. I really hope so. But it's going to mean that, 50 million, 100 million people are going to have to feel a lot of pain. And it sucks.
I heard this comment from somebody out of India like years ago, in talking about climate change and talking about, sustainability and these sorts of things. And there was almost this kind of interesting like resentment in the attitude, kind of looking towards the West as having benefited from mass exploitation of the planet for so long. And now that some of these regions had industrialized enough to now begin their arc of exploitation, then feeling like, hey, it's our turn now to like milk and burn this thing.
Yep.
And now you've got a problem with it. How dare you, right? So the attitudes, I think, and this shows up in policy, obviously, but I think the attitudes are pretty far apart as well, because it's almost like a type of, I think from there it's almost seen as a type of Western privilege, right?
Yeah.
To be an environmentalist or even talking about climate change at all. And so it winds up being like almost like a regional policy issue, whereas the effects are global, right? Have you dealt with any of that in your work, of that sort of difference in attitude and values, I guess, even regionally?
Well, absolutely. It's like you guys had the chance to pollute all your rivers and cut all your trees down and throw plastic everywhere, and now it's our turn.
Yeah.
But I think that look at China. I mean, they're one of the largest producers of renewable energy in the world, right? So they're able to do that. I mean, India, I think I just heard that they just signed like a new trade deal, or they're in the process with the US and so on, right? That's going to supercharge things in India as well. But it's like, why not leapfrog, right? Why not move on, move forward? And that's the opportunity. But yeah, it's like, it's pretty bad. We live in this like little utopian world here in North America and Europe. But the reality is when you're struggling, you're trying to get by. But there's plastic pollution is the craziest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't we just help the economies around the world leapfrog and do, get super efficient. I mean, per capita, India's energy consumption is significantly lower, right? I mean, it's like things like that. But I mean, I think we need to help each other out. This is the thing. We have the technology here on the planet to do it today. There's just, I don't know, but the political will. But I'm super hopeful. Like I said, I think India, I mean, a billion people, right? I mean, it's like, we can figure this out.
Well, I mean, leapfrogging is an interesting way of thinking about it because of, like, when a population is properly incentivized and is resourceful enough, like I love the example of mobile phones, right, in Asia. Whereas you had, like, economies in places like Scandinavia, for example, where they were doing hardline, like ADSL and all sorts of things that were, between telephone and like fiber optic, but they've been laying this stuff for years. And so their wired networks were quite incredible. Mm-hmm. But then you go to Asia and you have many countries and technologies exploding, and they just didn't have the time, investment, resources to lay down that much line, right? And you're not going to get that many wired connections. So they completely leapfrogged the whole landline sort of thing that we went through. And their mobile networks have absolutely kicked the shit out of ours for decades. And they continue to. They're so much better than our mobile networks.
Yeah, you drive like just a little out of town and you're like,
my data's gone now. Yeah. And that's not the case out there, right? And so, I think there's a moment where the technology meets, the population is incentivized, and there's also some sort of constraint, right, that's forcing it. Is there anything specific that you can kind of look at and you can say, okay, here's a place where there would be a good incentive and they could just blow past us if they just chose a different route?
Yeah. I mean, it's already happening. So to your point, in terms of energy and decentralized and distributed energy, solar and batteries, like all over Africa, India, like they're there. They're already starting to. So the cell phone led the way with those networks, micropayments, microfinancing, et cetera, the Grameen Bank, et cetera. Now you can sort of do the microfinancing. That actually spurred on this energy revolution, right? So now all of a sudden there was this pay-as-you-go energy that you could now finance a small little solar and battery system, right? So the way that you're going to electrify all these crazy places on the planet is exactly like this. It's a distributed generation. Every house is going to have its little solar panel, battery. You're going to have efficient appliances. It's starting. It's starting, and it's already been going on for the last decade. So I think you're going to see a lot of those parallels. It's also going to be around resiliency, right? It's happening.
What do you think the greatest friction will be? Like, is it really just political will?
Yeah.
Really?
100%.
100%?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty absolute.
Yeah, everybody, I mean, it's like we have the technology. Mm-hmm. We have abundance of resources. What we actually have is a resource allocation problem. Mm-hmm. We have unlimited resources on this planet to we can make food from, there's no shortage of land to make food and energy and so on. But it's a distribution issue. It's a resource issue. It's also cost money to make these things, of course. But I mean, I just think again back to India, right? I mean, it's like there's just India can do anything. It's got all the people.
Mm-hmm. See, political will. I mean, it's interesting to hear. I mean, it makes sense what you're saying. But sometimes we look at progress as a bit of a linear progression, and it seems to be a bit more of a spiral, right? I mean, you look at Canada, right, in our market. I'm not sure how effective they were because I'm not read up on the topic, but like the carbon tax, right? And we've just gone through a period of enough economic uncertainty, some amount of existential threat externally, and that was enough sort of nervousness. There was enough pain on the economic side felt by population that basically led to the scrapping of what was I think a pretty productive program to limit pollutants. Mm-hmm. So what do you do when even a country like Canada that you think would be progressive on these issues is like moving in the right direction takes what appears to be like a massive step backwards?
Well, Canada's a different a different ballgame. Keep in mind, we're still basically the whole entire economy is predicated on primary resource extraction. And that's been it since the inception of Canada, since before Canada, when the colonial folks came here 500 years ago. So that's been the whole premise. So we're still stuck in that. That's why we're lacking innovation. That's why we're not able to like get to that next levels, because we're still just like mine it, cut it down, fish it, and sell it before we upgrade it. So I think that's one of the challenges that we have here in Canada is it's actually stifling innovation and stifling our ability to like get to that next level. Our problems are not one party political. They're systemic throughout the entire culture of our country. In terms of the tax, I mean, it's just what I think calling it a tax probably was the wrong move. But, even the oil companies, they want to know. They're happy to play a part in it. They just need to know what the game is and what the goalposts are and where those incentives or disincentives are going. I don't think Canadians understand like what's really happening here, because if we want to be competitive on a global market, if we want to sell products to Europe, we have to sort of understand our carbon footprint. We've got to understand, what we're doing here, because those days of Canada just like, right, just sort of, I don't know, what do you call it, just rock and roll in it and not worrying about it are over. Like we can't, we want to sell to advanced countries in Asia and Japan. So I think it's probably an astute political move. But there's always going to be some sort of incentive and disincentive structure around addressing polluting, right? Look at the Montreal Protocols.
Yeah.
That was one of the most successful cap and trade things ever to be done, and it was around the ozone layer. If you remember, right, there was an ozone layer, and it was CFCs from refrigerants, and the globe got together and was like, "Hey, look,"
and did it.
Yeah. So if climate change or whatever the hell we're calling it, and cap and trade and taxes and this and that, whatever we're calling it, it's all just an exercise in trying to get the global governments together to have some friggin' political will to make this change happen. So I don't get caught up in like whatever the calling it. It's that we still suck at getting together. Look at COP, whatever it is now. Look at all these. They come up with like nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing happening. And so that's kind of what irks me is like we still can't even work together on this planet as one, sort of like humanity to figure these out. And until we, like we're screwed.
So maybe the pain has to be at that level. I think humanity is quite amazing when we face a existential external threat, right? Then it's unity. I mean, we saw that just with this little, I guess it was a threat, but the whole, 51st state, the US and Canada thing, but that was enough to do it, right? Like there's no real moves have been made beyond the tariffs, but that was enough for people to just get their backs up and suddenly like Canadian nationalism is like back. It's cool again, right? Like the Freedom Convoy had kind of fucked that up for a little bit, but now suddenly waving a Canadian flag was cool again.
Even the Quebecers are like, okay, we can get behind this.
Yeah, completely. It was wild. So that was pretty quick, but again, it was an external threat and a promise of pain, and that's what did it. But it was interesting hearing you talk about the economy in Canada, because you're talking about resource extraction almost like a bit of a drug that we're hooked on, and
100%.
And that's actually preventing us from going out and doing many other things that we could be doing. But the prevailing attitude, I think, economically and politically today is that we haven't done enough resource extraction in Canada, that actually we should have gone to town on whatever we could do for drilling for oil, for minerals, for lumber, like you name it, that actually across the board we've been too limited in this fashion.
I agree.
And that's the moment we're in now, right?
I 100% agree with that. Like we have the resource endowment. Why not be good stewards of that resource, but also the planet wants it. So let's gear it in the right direction. Yeah. I'm not against any of that. I'm not even against the oil business per se, but why not make our business as resilient as possible? Why not make it, if we are going to be selling, we're still in an oil age, even though Sheikh Yamani, he was right with the, his statement there about the oil.
Stone Age.
Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. The oil age won't end because we ran out of oil, but it's like Europe still wants it. Asia still wants it. People still need it. Why not make our energy corridors as efficient as possible? Why not? I mean, this is the whole thing, right? Why not use our resources? Our challenge is why not upgrade them here? I just attended a bioeconomy conference last few days here in BC. It's about our forestry, and there's so many things you can make from forest products, and you can make everything from like medicines to like high value products and plastics and batteries and incredible stuff. Yet we don't upgrade any of our forestry products here. We barely do. The Nordic countries, who have like 5 million people in each country, have 10x more innovation than we do. Right? Think about that. And then you've got we've got to build all these houses, right? Okay, we need to build millions of houses and dwellings and so on, whatever we're calling it. We have all the resources here, right? Like, to me, this is the greatest opportunity for Canada that's existed. So why not create? We've got empty mills, entire sitting here, right? Because the pulp and paper industry kind of left, and
on the exports,
right? So why not refurbish these mills into building materials, advanced building materials? I mean, this is kind of this is what blows my mind. It's but yet the government is still struggling to figure out how to do this. But yet the entrepreneurs are ready to go, right? This is now sort of wading into the more politics side of things. But it's
I was actually just about to ask, have you ever thought that politics or political life might be a way for you to affect change to the extent that you're talking?
I can make more change happen through business right now. Yeah, I would say for the moment, it's just it's all it's the business folks. When I started Portable, I remember I went to the city of Vancouver Economic Commission, and they had said, we've been waiting for this. And it created a whole sort of chain reaction around changing the bylaws around city parks and generators, right? And in the whole Metro Vancouver area, and then all of a sudden the film industry, right? So just from starting a business, that made that change happen.
It created those ripples. Yeah.
Right? Now, if someone called me up one day and was like, hey, do you want to be the energy and innovation minister? I'd be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Right? But also, I think there's nothing sadder than being a career politician. And so
that wasn't that was a I mean, it doesn't sound like you were directing that shot at anybody, but I think it landed really well.
I mean, it's just it is what it is, right? You got to go out and make your own place in the world.
Yeah, and understand how things work to a large extent, right? And that's only done if you're playing in the world.
Yeah, you've got to sit at the table of various industries and business deals. You're only as good as your last table that you've sat at, where you're like, okay, this is what's going on, or having those conversations behind closed doors. Everything's happening behind closed doors. But yeah, no, I really believe in Canada. It's just sometimes it's it feels like it's an embarrassment of riches, right? We have all this talent, these young people. Everybody I know that's Canadian, we can sing, write, dance, and produce. We're good. We're good people, but we're probably a little too comfortable, and
I think that's it.
Yeah, and the government's not truly stepping up in some ways, right?
So from your education to industry and everything that you've talked about, I mean, I think your perspective on where change needs to come from is pretty fascinating. I'm really curious about as you kind of walked through all of this, what have you learned about yourself and your own leadership and how you show up and do this?
Oh man.
What surprised you from the early days of oil and gas till now, where you look back and you go, oh wow, I didn't realize that was a part of me?
Well, I think it's it's this ability to feel and listen, to my internal guiding system and in my body, because that's what I was saying, back to that conversation about override. I was the best. I still kind of am in some ways, but I can't do it anymore.
At doing the override.
At override, right? Because I can get shit done. I can work 24 hours straight if I have to. I can do it. But is that really what needs to happen? So for me, it was around like sort of really being able to be vulnerable, to be intuitive, and to listen to that and to make action around that. Like, that's really what it is. Like, this is an interesting thing. Like, so when I left Portable in December 2023, I put together this really beautiful, heartfelt slideshow of all the old photos. Like, I have documented everything and all the original team and the first products, the first shop. And I put this really beautiful slideshow together, calling people who, shining a light on the early folks and telling stories. And people were in tears, people were in tears. And it was like, because I was just leading from, with my heart and sharing these like stories and so on, right? Versus like, again, the sort of, a leader who's not doing that, right? And I think that's like, people will get in line. People will follow if you're honest and true and, from the heart. And without that, like, I don't think a business is going to succeed in this modern time. Yeah, there's old school stuff, right? But new school businesses, like, be human, but also people will follow if you're honest with them, right? Like, you can't pull a fast one anymore. Not with Glassdoor, not with, everybody knows. This is, again, back to that whole thing. Leonard Cohen, he had it. He knew it, right? Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, we can't, there's no hiding anymore. And I think that's kind of where we're at. We've got these two poles, right? One that's sort of like trying to hide and trying to still hold on to power, and one that's like, we got to like reimagine how we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. So Mark, if people want to learn more about you and everything that you're doing, where should they go?
Well, first, the tie-in. We actually do this fun little intro banter, Zena and I, so they get to know a little bit about our lives as well. And we have interviewed these incredible guests. They're just like, that really like challenge us and expand our view of the world. So that's the Tie-In podcast, www.tieinpodcast.com. And you can find that on all the different, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. And then myself, you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Rabin on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Does anybody still use that? I'm just around. Reach out to me, like I love connecting with folks, and I love jamming on ideas and innovation. Not just energy technology, but social innovation. I'm really spending a lot of time thinking about regenerative economics, right? The world of just the regenerative world. There's a whole movement afoot. This amazing woman named Jenny Stefanati, and this podcast called Denizen, Denzin. Incredible podcast on just the world of the regenerative world. It's becomingdenizen.com. So, there's like, just so many amazing communities and sub-communities out there right now that are making real change happen and that are figuring this out. So for me, that's what keeps me going is knowing that we're working on this mega project together with folks like yourself, Mo.
I was going to say, and I can vouch for your openness to connect because we reached out and you jumped on it. So much appreciated. Yeah,
thank you for doing this.
No, thanks for coming on, man.
My pleasure.
Well, hopefully we've given you a lot to think about. That was High Agency. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.